Okay, today we're going to cover the French and Indian War. Questions to be able to answer. What countries claimed land in North America in the mid-1700s? We're looking for 4 countries here. Second question, what issues caused the French and British to go to war over the Ohio Valley? Key part there, what issues would cause a conflict between the French and the British? Why are they fighting over the Ohio Valley? Look for the Ohio Valley when you're going through this. Second question, how did Ben Franklin try to unite the 13 colonies? He's going to attempt to unite the 13 colonies. What was his plan? Did it work? Fourth question, what were the major battles that ended the French and Indian War? There's going to be several battles. Look for the ones that are going to help end the war. Fifth question, what was the outcome of the French and Indian War? How did it affect North America? So look for the effects on 4 different groups of people: the British, the French, Spain, and the Native Americans. What happened to those 4 groups? In the 1700s, you had 4 countries that controlled North America. In the north, you had Russia with several fur trading posts along the coast of Alaska and Canada. We already learned about Spain and its empire. And then we also have the French that we learned about along the St. Lawrence River and the area around the Mississippi River shed. And we just got done learning about the 13 English colonies, but they also controlled the area around the Hudson Bay. Again, if you look at your key here, this will also give you a helpful hint of where these 4 claims were. Again, Great Britain claimed the area around the Hudson Bay and the Atlantic coast. France was in between both Great Britain's claims along the St. Lawrence River. And they also, again, had control of the Mississippi watershed. And again, this was a conflict, especially in the disputed area. This is an area that both France and Great Britain claimed was theirs. It was an area that was along the Ohio River, and it was a very valuable fur trading area. And both France and Great Britain tried to gain control. Until the 1750s, though, it was the Native Americans who had most control of this area. If the British or the French were going to claim this area, they were going to need the support of the Native Americans. Both the French and the British had positive things to offer the Native Americans. The French, with their relationships and positive relationships with the Native Americans, were able to offer more support and respect. They gained most of their support from the Hurons, the Shawnee, the Miami, and the Lenape, while the British were able to offer more and better goods. They were a wealthier country. They were able to provide more tools and better support for the Native Americans. And they gained the support of the Iroquois, which is 6 nations of the Mohawk, the Onondaga, the Oneida, the Cayuga, and the Seneca, as well as the Tuscarora. Now, in 1750, the French started to increase this conflict by building 3 forts in the Ohio Valley region. Okay. This upset the British. They were very furious about this because they also claimed the area. So they sent George Washington to deliver a message to them to leave the area. Well, the French refused because they also felt that they had the right to this, and they built Fort Duquesne, which is a significant fort because of its location where the Allegheny River and the Monongahela River meet and form the Ohio River, which is a significant trading route for the fur trade. This eventually will become the city of Pittsburgh. The British send George Washington out again to scout this fort, and along the way, George Washington runs into a French scouting party and attacks. Okay, they retreat and send troops back after George Washington, who is forced to build Fort Necessity. Eventually, Washington and his men are captured and forced to surrender. But the battle and the fighting begins the French and Indian War. With the beginning of the French and Indian War, the colonists of the 13 colonies realized that they are going to need to form some form of defense to help defeat the French. They are British citizens, of course, and so they are part of this war. Their strategy becomes known as the Albany Plan of Union. Okay? It's led by Ben Franklin. And this plan was to unite the colonies by creating a council made up of representatives, people from each colony that would get together and plan strategies for defeating the French, how to fight, getting supplies. Now, this plan of union fails. Hashtag fail. But the idea that stays with the colonists is this idea of trying to unite, becoming united. Because again, all these 13 colonies have unique groups of people living there. They're all there for different reasons. Okay? The idea of uniting had never existed until this Albany Plan of Union. So that's the big significant outcome of this attempt with the Albany Plan of Union, is the idea of uniting. That will stay with the colonists after the war. Now, before the war is officially declared, there were several small battles that did take place that didn't go very well for the British. One particular one was the British trying to recapture Fort Duquesne. It was led by General Braddock, and he was trying to use European battle tactics. Now, European battle tactics are where you line people up out in the middle of a field in a big, long line with soldiers in rows. Now, that tactic wasn't going to work very well in the dense forest of the Ohio Valley region. Okay? You can see in this picture here, as they're traveling in rows and columns, traveling to wherever they need to go, the dense forest along the side provides a lot of cover for ambush attacks. And that's how the French were able to surprise and attack the British troops. The result of the tactics that Braddock used were very disastrous, and he was killed. And the Americans and the colonial soldiers that were with the British were forced to step in and save them, and Washington was the one who stepped up and ordered a retreat. Okay. Again, the early part of the war did not go very well for the British. They were defeated at Fort Duquesne. Fort Oswego and Fort Henry were taken. It wasn't until 1757, after the war was formally declared, that the British king decided to appoint William Pitt as the Minister of War. Now, this war, again, the 7 Years' War, was a war that was being fought all across the world, in India, in Europe, in North America. But Pitt decided that the war should be focused on winning it in North America. So he decides to invest a lot of money, troops, and the British Navy over in North America. Okay, and this is going to be important because it's going to cost a lot of money and put the British in debt. And the British will look towards the colonies as repaying this debt later on after the war. But again, Pitt decides to send over troops to North America. And as a result, they are quite successful in capturing Fort Duquesne, then sending the British Navy to capture Fort Louisbourg. After Fort Louisbourg, they give General Wolfe the challenge of capturing Fort Quebec. Fort Quebec is high up on a cliff and was basically impenetrable. There was no way to get up the cliff. But they were able to find a spy that was allowed them to find a passage up to the top of Quebec, where Wolfe met the French General Marquis Montcalm on the Plains of Abraham and was able to defeat them and take control of the French capital, Quebec. This is a major turning point in the war and allowed for them to eventually capture the other major city of Montreal. The war continued until 1763, when the British and French officially end the war with the Treaty of Paris. In 1762, the Spanish tried to join the side of the French, and so they are also part of this treaty. The result of the treaty is that Great Britain gains control of all the eastern half of North America. Okay? They now have everything east of the Mississippi River. They also gain control of Florida, who was given up by the Spanish. France loses all of its land in North America, except for this area of Saint Domingue, which will not later become Haiti, and a few small fishing islands. Spain, again, who had entered the war late, loses Florida, but the French are forced to give them the Louisiana Territory. The big loser in the war were the Native Americans, who lost their trading agreements with the French. Again, the French were the ones who provided them with the most respect and provided them with the fairest treatment, whereas the British are going to take advantage of the Native Americans. Even though they can provide them with better goods, the respect is lost, and eventually will lead to the Native Americans wanting to attack any British citizens, especially the British colonies. And so the Great Britain is forced to issue a proclamation line of 1763, which is going to try to prevent British citizens from moving west. And we'll learn more about this in the next section.